General Sudhakar, this is the Global Digest think tank group. Today you are our guest in our think tank discussion.
The Global Digest is doing extremely well under your leadership.
Thank you.
In 5 years' time, you have actually touched very significant milestones. You
Right.
have gone a long way. In fact, Global Digest is one of the few think tanks in the world which is well acclaimed, and you have a very outstanding reputation.
Thank you.
Outstanding. I was a colonel of the regiment. That is the highest rank as far as the regiment is concerned. A regiment has got a good number, 30 odd battalions, and I had risen up to the status of additional director general, or the deputy commandant of Army War College. We have a training academy where the officers are trained. That's a war college, and you are responsible for the training of the officers, including officers from friendly foreign countries.
General Sadokar, you have been in the conflict at the Ladakh. You are directly confrontation with enemy fighting.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I was in the front line, dealing with the enemy directly, directly involved in the combat situation. Yeah, that's the right way of putting it.
You have combat experience between Pakistan and India, and between uh, China and India border area, right? Mainly these two border area you have combat experience, right? I talk also with Indian professor about Ladakh issue and Doklam issue, and many Indian professors appreciate that Doklam issue is strategically successful, but Ladakh issue said India is failing in this conflict. Their professor, they have expressing such thing. And also I had Tibetan Prime Minister now based in India. You can make arrangement and agreement with Tibetan government.
And Doklam that you're talking of. Ladakh and Doklam, it has got a historic, I would say, timeline to be related. Let me at the outset clarify that India never had a border with China, as simple as that. Never. India towards Ladakh side had a border with East Turkmenistan or East Turkestan, which is called as Xinjiang province today. It is to be called as East Turkestan once upon a time.
I see.
And the border, if I recall, respect my memory, there was a treaty which was signed way back in 1684. It is called a Trignosir treatment. It was between the Tibet and the Ladakhis. As per that agreement, they had a line passing between the two countries. 1684 or 1624. No, 1684 is the thinmost gang of 1684 between Ladakh and Tibet. This was a treaty, and it was followed by a treaty of Sikh Empire, which it annexed Ladakh in 1831. In 1842, the Dogras versus Tibet war. In that, Dogras had captured up to Minsar and Kailash. Minsar is a small enclave at the base of Kailash mountain. And in 1846, the British had defeated the Sikhs and transfer of sovereignty over Ladakh to British India. This is how the sequence. So if you have to look back, which China keeps on claiming time and again, then this treaty has to be taken cognizance of. Okay, so this border, as per the map of India, at one point in time, in 1917 to 1933, 16 years, 33, 34. Do you know a map of China, not a map, a postal stamp of China, used to always show the boundary as is being depicted by India today.
I see.
That was the line dividing between China. I'm talking about Ladakh, the complete border, Ladakh and China. If that was the line between China, China was not China that time. It was ROC, Republic of China.
Right.
China was PRC. It came into existence in 1949. And after 1949, you and me, all of us know what has happened. It has invaded into Tibet, it has invaded into Xinjiang province, and they are trying to do salami slicing. They are not settling the border with India. India has indicated openly, formally, informally. There are 5 protocols which have been signed. 40 years of peace and tranquility was experienced until Galwan incident. Not a shot was fired. 93, 95, 2005, 2012, 2013. In between, there are many agreements which are signed between Pakistan and China. Now come Xi Jinping. From 2013 onwards, it is only aggressive projection of power. Every second, third year, there is some aggression or some intrusion taking place into India. So basically, what I would say, if there is intention is noble, nothing is impossible. Same with the case with China, may be economically thriving, and it has leapfrogged in technology, in economy, in military might, and its dominance all over the world in terms of critical mineral, your rare earth element, space, naval power, electromagnetic, cyber capability, all capabilities. But the issue remains the Ladakh issue. For example, since you have raised the issue of Ladakh, I would say that as is, where is this? Aksai Chin is there with China. I'm asking myself, can we take Aksai Chin back today? It is militarily, I would say, it is a counterproductive proposal or thought process. Even if you take Aksai Chin, will it give you that much in return that you spend to take Aksai Chin back? I don't think so. For 21st century, my honorable Prime Minister has been making a statement that this is not the era of war. Diplomacy and dialogue will give you a permanent solution. I would recommend that China and India should talk it out once and for all, demarcate the boundary, firstly delineate the map, resolve all these things had been done by 2013, by the way. There is a protocol called a 2005 protocol. As per that, they were in a very advanced stage. All the technical ambiguities and disputes had been resolved. It was only a political decision of give and take. China wanted Aksai Chin formally, and India, Aksai Chin is already in physical occupation with China. And they said, you keep the Arunachal Pradesh or the South Tibet. I would say it is the same proposal with which Chou Enlai came way back in 1960 to India, and he had been declined by then Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. But somehow or the other, with the passage of time, I think Xi Jinping has not understood the complexity of the situation. India and China were going in the right direction. Until the border is settled, I don't think peace and harmony will come back, be it with Pakistan or with China.
Right. So that Tibet, especially India, used to be since ancient time neighboring with Tibet, and Tibet also said they are close with India, and in terms of religion and all this thing, ancient time also Buddhist. Tibet are Buddhist too, so they are very close with India. And Tibet people, I don't know, between India and Tibet, you have any agreement or any mutual, cooperation or at least alliance or at least neighboring? How much can you say that?
You raised a very important point because it's good, it's relevant to raise these issues, ancient relationship. You see, China keeps on saying history is a very important component of modern negotiation and diplomacy.
Right.
Who says? China is saying. So if China is saying history is important, why? What stops you and me to go back in time and look back towards the ancient relationship? So from ancient times, there were no maps. There were frontiers.
Right.
Okay. Language, culture, religion. They were actually, intermixing with each other. There were no defined boundaries on the maps. So therefore, what I would say that yes, you are right to large an extent that our epic, Mahabharata, Ramayana, our Vedic literature, in some of the documents, you have these kind of things actually mentioned. Tibet is coming into prominence. But that doesn't give you the leeway of claiming it. Because you
Right.
have to claim officially and formally from a timeline from which both the nations have attained their nationhood. China came into a nationhood status from 1st October 1949. India became a country, conglomerate of all these 565 princely states, on 15th of August 1947. So what happened prior to that, the modern history or diplomacy or the geopolitics does not give any recognition. It's going to be a long drawn legal battle. Okay. So
Yes.
what is coming to my mind is, yes, Tibetans have an affinity towards India. I have been there in Tawang sector. Tawang has got the largest monastery in that area. Potala Palace is the largest in the world, second largest in Tawang. People over there in Tawang, which is part of India, have got cultural affinity and linkages with people across the border. I would say that as on today, there is, although China is claiming that there is a border between China and India, but as far as I am concerned, officially, formally, I would say, notwithstanding the agreements that we have had with China so far, whenever China does not behave, we should rake up this issue. There is no boundary between India and China right since ancient time till date. If at all we had a boundary, the boundary is with Tibet. This is the line which government of India should take. Unfortunately, way back in 1954, when the Panchshil Agreement was signed, and consequent to Panchshil Agreement, it is we had the outpost, Shigatse, we had Yalong, we had Gartok towards that side, Xinjiang side, Shigatse in the central China side, and Yalong is towards the Chumbi Valley between Sikkim and Bhutan. So these are the outposts which we have had till then, till 1954. The British India Empire used to have the footprint of military, postal department at these places. It is until 1954, the Panchshil Agreement, the mutual respect for each other's sensitivity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, respect for all these things was actually ingrained for 8 years because of an agreement signed in 1954 with China till 62. What is of relevance is in 1954, there is a treaty which was about to be signed. It's the McMahon line, the border. The border was signed by everyone except for the rep of China. At that time, there was no border with China. What is the relevance of getting a signature of Chinese rep when there was no border with China? The Tibetan rep, who was Dalai Lama's representative, was good enough.
Right.
Why doesn't India go in and formalize this particular thing and settle it once and for all? It is not going to happen that easily. My point and take is that, yes, it's time. If China doesn't behave as per the rules-based international order, I agree with you. This particular point that our affinity with Tibet must be raked up, as it is there more than 100,000. More than 100,000 Tibetans who are residing. His Holiness Dalai Lama is there in India at Dharamshala. There are a number of pockets where the Buddhists are staying. We have a contiguity in geography, culture, and linkage with the border villages. So we must actually claim our historic connections with the Tibetans and formalize the thing. And let's see what happens in times here.
Right. But there is no any formal
No,
agreement
no.
or
To the best of my knowledge,
no,
no. I've read.
no Indian Prime Minister or Indian Parliament made any decision. Nothing yet about Tibet, right? Like that Kashmir, they did not done anything.
What bothers me is the lack of knowledge, lack of correct interpretation of rules and regulations. Even people who are trying to find out, truth is truth. Truth cannot be hidden.
Right.
If I say yes, I mean, there is nothing stopping. There are so many books, libraries, internet, Wikipedia, everything will throw up. If I say no, you can also disprove that no in
So,
many meaningful.
so India
So, my
governments
best
are
of understanding, there is no agreement. If there is some, I would like to be educated as a student of geopolitics and history.
right, right. So it means on the Tibet issue, no Tibet government and India has made any agreement, and no Indian parliament or Indian Prime Minister made any decision. So it means no formal document, no official document so far. So in that this Tibet issue, so you was in the uh, Ladakh area and you was in the Tawang, as you said. So in Tawang, when you was there, you was also there at the combat between India and China. Is there any combat
Yeah,
happen at the time?
many of them,
I
many,
mean,
many.
with yourself when you was in Taiwan.
Obviously, I was the commander, and there are many, almost on day-to-day basis. We used to have every day, every second day used to be.
How
But
many years you was in Taiwan?
more than 2 years.
So it means in within 2 years you have every day a kind of tension,
No,
something
you
like
see,
the
no
conflict
protocol.
area.
The protocol of 93, 95, 2005, 12, and 13, they were holding out that time, the peace and tranquility. We had altercation, but we did not fire a bullet.
I
You
see.
understand?
What about China side? They fire bullet to India?
No, 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 neither side. Actually, that is what I'm saying. 40 years of protocols, peace and tranquility were junked with one incident and episode.
So during your 2 year in Taiwan, there was no bullet was shoot, and but it doesn't mean you are easy situation. You have a kind of tension, a kind of always you have readiness, right? Military readiness. So how
Tension.
many troop, how many soldier you were commanded in India side? The number of soldier.
Much more. Big number, big number.
About
Well, these are all I can't. These are classified stuff. I can't disclose in open this thing. So
a lot of soldier in Taiwan when you was duty in Taiwan.
that I'll never tell you. That I'll not never tell you. These are classified. I'll not say. But
Right,
I had large number of troops, and
right. So then a lot of soldier in India side. What about in China side? Do you know the number of Chinese soldier?
they had equally big, equally. The connectivity was under development towards China. Our connectivity was poor because you go to climb. The terrain
Right,
is difficult from our side. Okay, when you make a road this year, next year it gets washed away. Those kind of. Now things have stabilized. The
right,
government of India has invested so much of money in infrastructure and development in past couple of years that it has taken us miles ahead.
right,
What India neglected in past 20, 25 years or so, we have achieved those things in past 4, 5 years.
right.
Okay.
So I mean, at the time, China also still poor, not yet big economy. So they also not develop a lot of infrastructure. And you said both side has big soldier, big army.
China is likely, it is better connected, railway line, roads. So even if they had less soldiers along the front line, they were connected with very good roads and railway line to the hinterland. They could mobilize the resources at the
Really,
shortest possible time.
even
Okay.
1990s, China has better connection and better infrastructure than India. But
Anytime.
nowadays, with their big economy, they can do much better infrastructure. And last time, Indian professor also say India both in Ladakh are reducing, and nowadays is much reducing. And China is much better economy. It means China is upper hand in Ladakh area. Can you say like that? Why India troop India military force are reducing in Ladakh area?
No, it is not reducing. As per my input, I keep studying, keep reading newspapers. It is not reducing. It is
It's
a
not.
formidable defense. India is holding tight. Formidable defense. China dare not do anything. Even if they do, uh, they will do things at a prohibitive cost. India is so well prepared that this time it will give a very direct punch at a sensitive points where China will be made to recoil. So I don't think, because China knows that India is not what it is to be in 1962. China knows. China knows there is only one country in the world. Even US also can't stand up to China, like the way India can stand up. So China knows about this. China knows about the strengths and the weaknesses of India. Ours is a growing economy, will require time. And as a student of geopolitics, I have been recommending that there is no harm in mending ties with China, because the dependence on many issues with China, be it the raw material or rare earth element, or what do you call that, API for making the pharmaceutical products, semiconductors, etc., is so high that there are no alternate supply chain. Even if you plan for an alternate supply chain, by the time the alternate supply chain gets into place, you have another turbulence in the world order like tariff, Trump tariff tyranny. So the world order is becoming so uncertain and unpredictable. That is the reality. So that's why you got to keep your options open, multiple options. Okay.
Right. Of course, China know India situation, India weakness, and India strong point. And anyway, I'm not sure. Ladakh area, especially Ladakh area, it seems China is upper hand.
China cannot be on upper hand anywhere along this border, northern border, because of being high altitude. I have seen the soldiers myself. I have seen the officers of China myself. I have interacted with them. They lack physical fitness. They are not mentally robust. Their technology does not work in high altitude. They may be improving. I know they're applying the artificial intelligence and such like products and all. And connectivity infrastructure, they are good. Optical fiber, they are good. They have made 628 border villages, they are good. They shifted the Han Chinese to border villages, giving them incentive of $5,000, $6,000 per month. That is also good. But
I
nobody
see.
wants to stay along the border, let me tell you. China's biggest challenge is one child policy. They don't have enough male member to actually come into army. People don't want to join army, by the way. Do you know it?
I see.
They have an employment problem. That is why in the graduation, if you check up 3 year or 4 period, 4 years of graduation, after graduation, they are compulsorily being made to continue for extended period because there are no employment opportunities.
I see.
There are a lot of critical issues in China, a lot of critical issues. After Galwan incident, 2020, we discussed last time, if you recall, Galwan 2020,
Sure.
there was a total freeze of all activities. But from 21st October 2024, a lot of effort has gone in order to push back their intrusion. They had come into India side, they have gone back from India side. There has been a process of disengagement of troops from Depsang and Demchok, but the standoff continues. So it's a big achievement as far as India is concerned. Third thing, while the extended standoff continues, the embargo which China had imposed on India, for example, the tunnel boring machine, for making tunnels, you have boring machines. Now it has been lying in the shipyard of China for past so many months, almost 9, 10, 11 months, maybe more than 1 year. Despite having paid all the amount, the boring machine has not come. It is impacting the infrastructure development of India. Number two, the fertilizer which China has been supplying so far regularly, all of a sudden they put an embargo, don't supply it. Number three, the graphites of hard and soft variety, different variety, high density variety, which are required for an electric vehicle, it had been stopped by China. So all the embargoes which has been put and was impacting the economy of India, they have been lifted by China.
Do you have any duty station in Northeast India?
I've been to all parts. 38 years is a long service in army. I've been to Nagaland, Manipur, Tripura, Meghalaya, Assam, Sikkim,
I see.
Arunachal Pradesh.
Last time I talked with Nagaland University professor, and we also touched upon the 1960 Sino-India War. At the time, she said, Indian army are not ready. They reached Nagaland, and they don't know which route that Chinese army used and how they came into India. They don't know. And Naga state, they don't have their own local army. In India, each state, they don't have army. And you have a central government has only army, and you have a Assam Rifle in Northeast India. So when you was in Nagaland, and when you recall back 1960 war, how can you say was the main reason the war between Sino-India War, why India was not ready at the time? Right.
What happened in 1962? Why did India took it lightly, or why did India not prepare itself despite China showing indications? Now we need to understand India became an independent country in 1947, 15th of August.
Right.
In 47-48, there was a partition. Pakistan invaded India in October 1947. The war between India and Pakistan carried on throughout 47, 48, and on 1st of January 1949, there was a ceasefire with the intervention of the United Nations. Thereafter, India has gone through lots of internal challenges. And India had best of relations with China. In 50s, the CIA was playing a very important role, supporting the Tibetans against the Chinese. That is the time when China invaded Xinjiang province. That is 1949, 1st of October, the PRC was raised. Soon after that, invaded Xinjiang and Tibetan Autonomous Region. When the Tibetan Autonomous Region was invaded, India did not have any objection. It had objection up to a particular timeline. But beyond that timeline, it started acknowledging and identifying China as its neighbor. Actually, we did not have a border with China. We had a border with Tibet to the east, and we had a border with East Turkestan, which is called a Xinjiang, to the west. Okay. So with the invasion having come to a conclusion, we started accepting this border in whatever form. Chow Enlai had come way back in 60s offering that you keep Arunachal Pradesh, which they call as South Tibet, and they wanted to retain Aksai Chin. Because Aksai Chin is very important for them, because there is a highway called a G219, which connects between Lhasa. Lhasa is the capital of Tibet, with a place called as Kashgar. Kashgar is a capital, not capital. Urumqi is the capital of Xinjiang. Kashgar is actually a communication center. It's a metropolis. It's a huge city. It's an industrial town. The distance is 3,000 plus kilometers. It's a highway, The only way available to connect between Lhasa, Tibet with Xinjiang is to cut across Aksai Chin. Aksai Chin, though part of India, China is very mindful of it. They know about it. India also knows about it. But they had no option. They cut across. At that point in time, way back in 50s and 60s, there were no soldiers. There were no borders demarcated. It was only notified on the map. The British surveyors had gone on ground. I'll not confuse further. Johnson, you had McCartney, you had MacDonald. Different people had given different alignments of the line. One was extreme towards the China side and one was towards the India side. Whenever it suited them, they took it to China side. Whenever it did not suit them, they brought it to India side. This is, I'm talking about the western portion, Aksai Chin, eastern Ladakh side.
Right.
Okay. As far as the eastern portion is concerned, it is called a McMahon line. This McMahon line was actually decided by McMahon. There was a meeting on 14th of January 1914 at Shimla. There were three main representatives besides many other people. One was a representative from China. Second was a representative from Tibet. The third was a representative from India. Macon himself was the secretary of British. He had been given a task, come what may, you resolve the border. The Tibetan representative, Chen, he signed. But the Chinese representative did not sign. He just initialed. There is an argument to say at that point in time, China was not a relevant stakeholder. It was 1914. The Qing dynasty came to an end in 1911. Between 1913 till 1937, China is to show on a postal stamp the border as actually claimed by India, between India and China. But post 1937, they started changing the border, and on 1st of October 1949 and thereafter, they started showing Aksai Chin as their part. They did not show, but they built a road from early 50s. By 1957-58, the road had been built. It's a distance of 147.9 kilometers, and it is cutting across Aksai Chin. And Aksai Chin has got huge mineral deposits. So Chow Enlai came 3 times to India, offering the proposal. This is called swapping of options. Aksai Chin by China, and we keep the Arunachal Pradesh, which was already held with India. Jawaharlal Nehru, that time, was the Prime Minister.
Right.
He had 2 people that nothing doing. By then, by 1954, there were 3 important outposts, border outposts. These border outposts were existing during British undivided India Empire. One was at Yardok. Yardok is towards Xinjiang province side. One is at Shigatse. And the third one is towards Chumbi Valley, is called a Yartong, which were a couple of kilometers deep into the Tibetan and the Xinjiang province, now called as Xinjiang province, into the depth area. These were the posts which had postal connectivity. They had camps. When military forces used to come, they used to come there, they used to acclimatize, they used to carry out domination, and thereafter they used to go back. So these 3 places subsequently had to be surrendered to China because of an agreement which was signed in 1954. That agreement was called as Panchshil Agreement. The Panchshil Agreement was based on territorial integrity, territorial sovereignty, mutual respect for sovereignty, no war pact, kind of a no war pact, non-interference of each other's territory, etc., etc. Basically to maintain peace and harmony along the border. So India, while earlier used to be against China, but due course of time, because of changing circumstances, the Indian leadership started proposing a thought process of Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. What it means is India and China are brothers. So this became a slogan between two countries.
So
But
Panjshir agreement is due after British, right? British are gone.
Panchshil agreement was proposed by India and it was signed between India and China.
In which year?
1954.
I see. And I mean, Tibet issue is already finished at the time because before British, during British, there was Tibet government, you know. So Tibet government then, which means India did not able to cover up the Tibet government and Tibet country. Then India accepted Chinese invasion Tibet and as Chinese as a country and neighbor of India. So which means India disregarded Tibet since that time, and then later on you are still negotiating about border issue, right? And we also have border with China, Burma based on Manmohan line, right? Same in India also Manmohan line.
Absolutely, absolutely. Same McMahon line goes to a point called as Stilwell Road. Stilwell. There is a tri-junction between
Right.
Myanmar, India, and Tibet.
Right.
So it touches that point, and the border with Myanmar or the Burma in those days is to called as Burma.
Right.
The
Now
border
also
with Burma, yeah, now it is called as Myanmar. So border with Burma at that point in time was resolved and settled based on the concept of McMahon line.
right.
Okay, but same McMahon line, today China is objecting. China says we did not sign, we were a party to, at that point in time, 1914, China was not China. It was actually Tibet, as far as India was concerned.
Right.
So while the McMahon boundary is signed by the Tibetan stakeholder, the British stakeholder, the Indian stakeholder, China is objecting, no, it is not acceptable. It is for the sake of negotiation, actually. Because I personally feel, as a military man, both the countries can go in for a win-win situation by basing their claim on as is, where is basis. It is better, it is more logical, prudent to resolve an outstanding dispute than to carry on with the dispute and keep spending so much of money and men and receive death and destruction. My view is
around 1950s, just after British colonization ended, at the time, India is a better military capability because you have a lot of weapon and a lot of British remaining, you know, weapon, all this facility. Is an Indian better military capacity than China?
no,
How
no.
can you say?
You see, China, by all standards, the military capability definitely was stronger. Okay.
Really?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you why. Because the partition had taken place. Had it been only the undivided British India Empire, it would have been stronger. Now, because of partition, since Pakistan was created, some percentage of the troops, that is the fighting troops, and the weapons and the vehicles and the ammunition had to be given to Pakistan.
I see.
Army, Navy, Air Force.
Oh, as you point out, India military capability was reduced because of partition. Then India become much weaker and compared to the Chinese. And also because of India weaker position, India don't want to strong stand up position on this Tibetan issue. In spite of India's weaker stand on the Tibet issue, but China still invading into the India, Northeast India. So I mean, if India can stand up for Tibet, then Tibet can be a country, you know. Tibet issue is give up, and then why China still come into Northeast? That is the thing. China want more aggressive way, or China has some dissatisfaction on other issue, why they still come? You already give up a lot of things, I guess.
You have raised two issues. One issue is about the capability of India vis-a-vis China.
Right.
Okay. The second issue that you have raised is, was India weaker than China? Why did India lose to China? Okay. And likewise, associated issue. But let me just clarify one issue. While the partition had taken place, China was not, it had just annexed Tibet and the Xinjiang. From India's side, you see, India had become an independent country from British colony or British colonial empire in 1947. Before it could actually realize or have his feet on the ground, Pakistan had invaded. There was a conflict which was just finished in 1949. Okay. And after independence, it requires some time. You would agree that a country of India's size requires some time to consolidate, to take hold of, look after the socio-economic aspect. Before that thing could take place, therefore, you see, India decided it's a correct decision. When you read history, you'll come to the conclusion it was the right decision taken by India. Since Pakistan, by virtue of its animosity, was actually becoming very aggressive, and they wanted the Jammu and Kashmir to be liberated or wrested back from India. So India decided one front is okay to handle. It cannot handle two fronts,
Right.
China to the north and Pakistan to the west. So it decided in the mind. This is, I'm only joining the dots as a student of geopolitics and history. So it decided, let's keep only one front and tackle Pakistan. As far as China is concerned, we should compromise, negotiate, and since it is a bigger country than India, we should not unnecessarily, tinker with issues and flare them up. So, live and let live kind of a thing, in my opinion, or peace and harmony was an option to the northern flank, and to be ready for any kind of contestation from Pakistan to the western flank was a strategic issue which India had decided. But what happened after 1954 was because of the annexation of Tibet. The Tibet actually became very violent. There was a domestic revolution taking place within Tibet from the indigenous population of Tibetans. They were fighting against the Chinese. And there was so much of genocide taking place against the Tibetans that Dalai Lama, His Holiness Dalai Lama, had no option but to quietly exit. Even India did not know until told by CIA that His Holiness Dalai Lama has already infiltrated or migrated towards India. He is at a place called Kinjimane, and you please help His Holiness Dalai Lama to move from Kinjimane to the hinterland. So His Holiness Dalai Lama came into India. This became a kind of a trigger, a huge trigger of annoyance and something which China could not digest well.
See.
Along with His Holiness Dalai Lama, there was a group of people, almost about 100,000 Tibetans, who also came into India. He came through Northeast, Arunachal Pradesh. I have been to that place.
I see. The Dalai Lama came through Arunachal.
Yeah. He came through North. Arunachal Pradesh is part of Northeast.
I see.
And there is a little river valley connecting between Tibet and India. And through that river valley, he came. That is known as Kinjimane.
I see. That means China is following the Dalai Lama and came into Northeast India.
He
But
escaped.
why they go deep into the Nagaland and even Manipur? I guess they reach in Chinese soil or there. I talked with a Nagaland University professor. She said if Chinese soldier were there, they are very quick. Probably they don't stay for long, and they come. But India, there were no Indian soldier and nobody ready to defend something like that. So You said
No, no.
you said Chinese soldiers were not entering into Nagaland state and Manipur state. Probably even no army came in Northeast that much, right? Maybe very few army in Northeast at that time.
You have to understand from the perspective of India as a nation state. Prior to 15th August 1947, India was never a nation state. As far as the modern terminology of nation state is concerned, it is to be in groups of small, small nations, small, small princely states. So they
Right.
were brought together, 565 of them, by our late Home Minister known as Vallabhbhai Patel. He brought them together, and with the help of Treaty of Accession, they signed a treaty. And when they signed a treaty, they became a confederate or a province which had a legal alliance or connectivity with that main country called as India.
I see.
Prior to that, there was no India. It
No
was
a
a
single
subcontinent,
India, no a single India.
no single India. So
Right.
when these things happened, Northeast also, like you're right, what you're saying is correct. This is around 1962. Prior to 1962, Northeast China had already gone in. When we are talking about the war 1962, and without the 1962 war, the China had managed to cultivate insurgency in the state called as Nagaland. China wanted to have access into Nagaland. That professor may have said that China created insurgency towards close to 1962.
You also said Indian army are very weak at the time, and probably Northeast was very weak protection. Nobody able to defend, right? At that time, India central government has no position strong enough to defend even in Northeast India from China or any enemy, right? So that is the Indian army situation, and you said India was much weaker army because of a lot of British remaining weapon was some of them were taken by Pakistan, which means Indian army were weakened because India used to be the strongest in the region, British base, the main base, British base in Asia, in India, India, a lot of British army are also Indian soldier. So India supposed to be strongest army, but partition made weaker and many other issue. And you said there is no solid consolidated country. So right.
China's border finishes at a point called a tri-junction at Stilwell Road. Stilwell Roads during Second World War, Stilwell had made that road connecting between Arunachal Pradesh directly into Burma. 62 actual battle took place in Arunachal Pradesh, places like Kinjimane, places like Zimitang, Bumla, Tawang, Bomdila, and it finished off at a place called as down below is Tezpur. Okay, it did not go towards the eastern part of that side. Why it did not go, I know the reason. The reason is that part of Arunachal Pradesh is very difficult to be negotiated because the terrain is it is friction oriented. There were no roads, there were no connectivity. Okay, the main connectivity was through this alignment through Tawang into China or Tibet. And why it happened was, I said, His Holiness Dalai Lama came in. There was a genocide on the Tibetans. They came across the border into India. This became a point of contestation and anger as far as China was concerned. And from Hindi Chini Bye Bye and 1954 Panchshil Agreement. Panchshil Agreement was for 8 years. 8 years. It was signed sometime in May 1954 and it finished off in May, around April, May 1962. And 1962 conflict took place sometime in the month of October. Okay. Now, why it took place? Why? Because The Prime Minister that time of India, he always thought that he had the best of relationship with China. He in fact offered the name of China for permanent membership of United Nations Security Council. He always thought that China and India, because you know why? You know why? The main reason was China was becoming a big country, and India had recommended the name of China to become a member of the United Nations Security Council. And number three, Jawaharlal Nehru was claiming himself to be a big statesman as far as the non-alignment is concerned in the world order. China had given indications to support Jawaharlal Nehru. These are issues which are not there in the open domain or history book. You have to do extensive study and research to come to this conclusion. So
Right.
Jawaharlal Nehru had a very high end of self-esteem that whatever he thought was absolutely true. It was not true. China, despite all resistance within Tibet and Xinjiang, had managed to actually consolidate itself. And Jawaharlal Nehru, when this point was raised in the parliament, that why had China built a road in Aksai Chin, which belongs to India? Jawaharlal Nehru in the parliament had said, Aksai Chin, not even a blade of grass grows. Even if they have built, so what? This was way back in 1959, close to the, and thereafter, when the pressure was mounted on him, that Chinese have come inside, close to our border, there was no line demarcated by the Britishers left for us and China. It was a line pursued by them and us. Chow Enlai had come with this proposal that let the line along which the troops, Indian troops and Chinese troops are physically manning, let that be accepted as the line of actual control, LAC. Aksai Chin, however, will remain with China and Arunachal Pradesh will remain with India. This was not agreed to by Jawaharlal Nehru. Why it was not agreed? It is to be seen in the backdrop of partition of Pakistan, and Pakistan has got an area called as Gilgit-Baltistan. Gilgit-Baltistan is part of Ladakh. Our northern border with China has got borders with Gilgit-Baltistan, which is presently with Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So these are the complex issues, and in order, because by then, Jawaharlal Nehru in the parliament had said that forward deployment policy, in order to teach Chinese a lesson, he said forward deployment. Forward deployment is possible only if troops have already reached there. There are supply chain connectivity, and also all the resources are actually available. One big mistake which Indian Army did was the Air Force of India was much more powerful and combat capability was much higher than that of China. China at that point in time did not have air bases along the Tibetan Plateau and the Xinjiang Plateau because it was at a high altitude. The road connectivity was not there. India could launch its air force from the mean sea level with adequate payload, target the targets, and come back, destroy and come back. But Jawaharlal Nehru, at that point in time, for some reason, did not allow the use of Air Force.
I see.
Had
So,
we been allowed to use Air Force, the story or the history of Indochina 1962 would have been, I'm confident, it would have been different altogether.
I see.
We kept on insisting, our senior leaders kept on insisting, please allow us to use the Air Force. Now you imagine troops who have never been there in the sector called a NEFA, who have never had any kind of training there, you suddenly pump them in just 2 or 3 months prior, tell them that forward deployment policy is to be followed as far as China is concerned. You never had a boundary or a border or a line which is mutually acceptable by both the parties. Will it not ever lead to a confrontation which actually took place in 1962? China was not accepting that line. India said, our line is as per the map marked by us. We did not allow our Air Force to use. You provoked the Chinese to come in a big way to teach us a lesson. Thereafter, they went back to wherever they are today.
Nehru, Zhao Enlai, Wu Nu, they are very close at the time, and they are also together non-alliance movement, and they are very at the time. They developed five rule for non-interference. So that is the key, and they are player at the time, regional player. So that's the reason Nehru are very close to the Zhou Enlai. Who knew? That's why he made mistake. He did not make the right military. He may not know about much military. Say UNU has no military background, at the time, Burmese leader. There is a lot of problem. That's why he got military to UNU. And that time, U Thant was Secretary General the end of 1960, about 1970, something like that. Then China was admitted to the UN Security Council, then because of Burmese first recognized China independent, communist China independent, so then they bring, because all Nehru, UNU, Zhou Enlai are close friends, we can say at the time. And you said that uh, uh, it's mean India is very weak. I mean, because of partition, so supposed to be strong military but weaker. And then China occupied Tibet. Actually, India should back up Tibet, but India are not in the position. Even your own China's southern Tibet, Arunachal was invaded. That still India cannot defend even in Arunachal. And because Tibet is strongly supported by British and international community at the time, probably during British Empire, Tibet is a country. So at that time when China uh, occupying Tibet, the British is already weak, and then America or other country did not support together with India to defend Tibet at the time. How do you see it at the time?
Look, firstly, the geopolitics at that point in time was actually passing through a very turbulent phase.
Right,
When I say turbulent phase, what it means is that the British India Empire or the British Empire had become very, very weak.
right,
On advice of USA, British Empire had to pull back from India because there was a kind of a protest going on in India, independent movement, freedom movement, quit India movement, leave India and go back. Okay, there was so much oppression on the British. So much so, the actual independence of India had been planned for sometime in June, if I'm not wrong, 1948. But the pressure started mounting so much on Britain, and Britain being at that point in time used to be a superpower, but it had become a weak superpower,
right,
a declining superpower. America forced US, UK to hand over India in whatever form it is, boundary or no boundary, and get out of the place much ahead of time. Instead of 1948, it actually handed over India, and India became independent in 1947 in a hasty manner. The border with Pakistan also was decided in one night, 7 days' time. Border between two countries, Pakistan was never an organic kind of a country, nor even a state. It was artificially created based on religion and language, etc., etc. Okay. Now coming to your comment about India was weak. That time, India, you see, when a child is born, when a child takes birth, initially child is not competent to do everything itself. It requires little bit of toe holding, finger holding, hand holding for
right,
some age until it starts walking. So even the child could take full birth. There are people who had started attacking the child. Okay, Pakistan was invading. There was pressure mounting from China's side.
right,
Second point is that the military capability, while it was there in favor of India, but it was not allowed to be used. Hindi chini bhai bhai. When China attacked against Indian troops, you'll be surprised to know that it was accepted with a lot of disbelief. China cannot attack Indian troops. We are bhai bhai. When the Dhola post, there is name of a post called as Dhola post. The attack took place at middle of the night on 20th October. Do you know that one evening prior, the troops of China, PLA, People's Liberation Army, and Indian Army troops, they're playing volleyball match? They were friends.
Right.
Maybe 2 evenings prior, they were playing volleyball. They're friends. India never expected that China would attack. So it was a misperception, misunderstanding of the alignment of the border, which had not been demarcated nor delimited on the map, mutually accepted by China and India, which India thought that the line was ahead of where they were. Hence, the leadership gave the order that forward deployment be the answer. When the forward deployment started taking place, China said, you are crossing the line. You are not supposed to come that side of the line, this side, outside. You be that side. So China said, in the evening, we may have played volleyball match, but it is not acceptable. We'll push you back.
Right.
So when this thing took place over a distance around 40 odd kilometers or hundreds of kilometers for deployment, or along the entire stretch of 3,488 kilometers, China said, sorry, this is not acceptable. So therefore they came down heavily, and to contest, to prevent China to come in further, we said, please allow us our own leadership, Jawaharlal Nehru and others. We have Air Force. Let us use Air Force. China's Air Force is not capable to fight or battle against India and allow it to penetrate so deep inside. But our leadership said, no, if you use the Air Force, it will go against us. It may flare up further.
Probably there was miscalculation. The diplomacy of Nehru understanding is different as diplomacy, and on the ground, on the front line, military situation is different. So it was not parallel between diplomacy and military issue probably at the time, and that sometimes diplomacy mistake, sometimes military mistake. We need to, parallelly able to manage. Otherwise, it can be something can be mistake. If no partition and no any problem in India continent, Tibet could be a country still today. Nowadays, what about India is good enough to defend all these Northeast state, different state, Arunachal, Nagaland, Manipur. India Army is good position and able to defend. And because the Nagaland professor said the Chinese move are very fast, the ground troop. They go climb mountain and movement very fast. Indian are not that fast movement. So that's also, on the ground practical, also some problem probably. How can you say India capability in Northeast India now?
Yes, India was going through a difficult time. It has just become independent. It had fought a war for 2.5 years or 1.5 years plus with Pakistan, and it was trying to consolidate itself. It had another war with towards Goa. Goa is a place where the Portuguese had to be evicted. 1961. Okay, so there are number of, and there was an insurgency blooming, they were growing in Nagaland. That professor may have actually indicated there was an insurgency which had been actually triggered by China taking advantage of the situation. It had pumped in people, got them to China, trained them to fight against the machinery of Indian British or the British India Empire. So what had happened was, and the Indian British people, military people, they had used them to actually subjugate China. So China has not forgotten that. China is waiting for an opportunity to redeem its deficiencies or the humiliation it was subjected to. He said that if the boundary has not been formed, doesn't matter, but it is British India Empire which had come into China at so and so place, Shanghai, Beijing, these kind of Guangzhou, all these places, they came in to do trade. They brought the British Indian Empire. He said, Indians will teach you a lesson. So that anger is building up from within. So His Holiness Dalai Lama coming in, genocide taking place in Tibet, His Holiness Dalai Lama coming in, 100,000 Tibetans coming into India, and no boundaries between two nations. Okay, and thereafter, China building a road across the Aksai Chin, issues raised in the parliament that Chinese have come into Aksai Chin, you are doing nothing. Jawaharlal Nehru saying, Hindu Chini, bye bye. But when pressure started mounting on him, he said, okay, forward deployment all over the border. When the forward deployment took place without any line, in between Chow En-lai had come with the offer. It had been declined by Jawaharlal Nehru. Finally, China was provoked to an extent wherein it had to come inside to teach India a lesson. India was not allowed to use the Air Force at that point in time. China had taken advantage of the situation, pumped in a lot of insurgents, militants. They used to take the Nagaland people into China, train them in militancy against the Indian administration. Military offensive against India came in three different sectors. One was the Eastern Ladakh, that Aksai Chin area. The second was in the middle sector to limited extent. And the third one was Arunachal Pradesh.
Arunachal, right now, the border between India, China, in the Arunachal state, it's clear now. You have clear line of control or line of agreement.
You see, now
It's
because of this,
still dispute. It's still dispute.
Disputes are there. You see, because of the standoff, this extended standoff since Galwan 2020 till now, it is almost going to be 5 years now. So over 5 years, our troops are on eyeball to eyeball contact. When a deployment like this takes place, willy-nilly, there is an imaginary line between the two. So both the countries would do well. There is a system already been put into place. The SCO meeting that I referred to, one of the substantive development which has taken place between India and China is the border resolution that you and me are talking now.
I see.
It had gone into a cold storage, but now with great amount of diplomacy and very, very innovative and creative kind of handling the Chinese, both the stakeholders have come to a conclusion that we need to settle the border. To settle the border, they have formed some committees, 3-4 committees, different groups of people. So they are working on it. We are very optimistic that it is definitely going to come to some kind of a resolution.
Probably SCO did not talk about Tibet issue, right?
No.
The collective S organization, nobody mentioned about Tibet, and
No.
we don't know about
This
Tibet. So nobody talk about Tibet, right? It's far from solution. Thank you very much, General Saduka.
Thank you, John.